Hi, friends. Welcome to my podcast Talk Real with Arjun. I am your host Arjun, and I hope all of you guys are staying safe and healthy. I know this is a tough time for everyone in this pandemic, but just remember we are all in this together and we have to fight this together. As per government rules, please stay inside the house and take care of yourself and help stop spreading the virus. Um, Today, we are going to talk about a relevant topic in this current situation, which is, of course, COVID 19. And I don't think I could find a very relevant person beyond my guest because who's been or her, probably I would rather say her team has actually been doing a lot of good work on this topic. I'll let her talk about this, but welcome, Nisha, to the podcast.
Thank you so much, Arjun, for having me here, and also very big congratulations on your new venture. I also must say that it's very convenient for him to have me here because we live in the same house, and I happen to be his sister.
Well, we still have the reservations about it, but we'll talk about that later. Let's dive into the topic. Nisha is a research fellow at Indian Institute of Technology, Madras. She has done both her undergrad and postgrad in the field of biotechnology and has been pursuing her research in biotechnology for a long time. She has done her previous research on HIV, but I let her talk about her current work because she can explain better than me. How's your lockdown period going on, Nisha?
I think I would say that it's going pretty well because I've been anyway working from home as everybody else. But in my work, it's quite difficult because my research expects me to be there in the lab. But somehow, with the help of technology and TeamViewer and Night Access and Zoom and everything, that I'm able to do my work from home.
That's definitely relevant. I can totally understand the pain, and people like me who doesn't have to struggle much because we've trained to work remote, and we've been working very efficiently with this current technology. I can understand how it's tough for you guys without collaborating with your team. Um,
Yeah.
while a lot of people are complaining about lacking social life and getting bored in this quarantine, I think you are one of the few people who got extremely busy in this lockdown, right? Can you explain to the viewers what's keeping you so busy?
Sure. So I have been working on coronavirus for the past 2 months, ever since this pandemic started. So initially, when this started, it did not affect a lot of people because it started in China, and it was within China for a long time. But once it started spreading globally, it became a huge, area of interest for research. Though COVID-19 has been global pandemic and affected a lot of people, of course, yes, but it was also paved a huge way for research, I must say, because we are able to use all sorts of experiments and finding new ways to find new medicines or vaccines to prevent COVID-19. So that's what keeping me busy, actually.
Well, that's a good starting point, but I know there is a huge, good news you have to share with the team, right? Congratulations for your publishing the paper, right? Can you explain a little bit more on your paper and probably just give a brief introduction of what's about it and explain in the layman terms?
Sure. So I actually very excited about this paper because it's my first author paper. So that's pretty special, I must say. So this paper is about the drugs for coronavirus. So if you see, there are we are in this huge pandemic situation, and there are no drugs or vaccine for this COVID-19. So what we have come up with is so my area of interest is bioinformatics or computational biology. So in research, in biological research, there are two things. One is computational research, and another one is like wet lab. In wet lab, where you wear lab coat and then use your solution and all that and to be in the lab. But in the computational research, you do everything in the computer. You sort of like, how to say, you find out drugs in the computer. Then the next stage would be to go into the lab, the actual lab, and then find out the actual medicines. So my work is computation. My area of interest is computational biology. So in this particular paper, what I have done, what I've focused on is I have taken already used drugs for coronavirus. So three drugs. Two drugs are used for HIV, and one other drug is used for influenza virus. since coronavirus also falls under the similar viral category, so we thought like, okay, probably this could be a good start to try out for this coronavirus as well. Eventually we found out that these three drugs together could inhibit this coronavirus effectively. So this is majorly our work, and we proved it in the computationally. We proved it computationally. However, there's a lot which needs to be done with respect to these works, because computationally, yes, it proved to be good, but in when you give it to the humans, like the real humans, you're not sure how these reactions are going to be. So there's still a long way to go for me.
So I think if I have to summarize your answer in a very short way, so I can say that you guys are your team is actually trying to find a solution or cure for the virus by taking the historical data of past diseases and trying to come up with an effective way or quick way rather, to curb this disease. Am I right?
Yes, you're right, actually. So we are working on FDA approved drugs. So these drugs have been already approved by Food and Drug Administration, so which means they are safe for human consumption. So this is the quickest way, I would say, to go about finding a solution for this pandemic. Otherwise, it takes a lot of time to find a medicine, to find the drug, and then clear the clinical trials, and then to market it. So we use FDA approved drugs for this. Yes.
I have a fair idea of what FDA approval is, but can you explain a little bit more to the viewers on, generally, like I know it won't be accurate because it depends on case by case, but how long, the approval takes, and like just your idea of on like, how elaborate the process is.
Okay, approximately developing a drug takes around 15 years. So it starts from your research, and then to design a drug, and then develop it, and then clear the clinical trials. In clinical trials, there are lots of there are 4 different phases. So where you have to first check whether it's possible to inhibit in the cell lines. So in the wet lab, in the laboratory environment, and then second one on the animal models, and then on the healthy volunteers, and then few other people. Finally, you come up with a drug where it's safe for human consumption. It takes a lot of years, and huge investment is being made in this particular developing drugs. Yes.
I have to say, really, really, you guys are unsung heroes of this world because you guys are working in behind the scenes in finding out many combinations of finding solutions for real world problems, which not necessarily come to the public in many a times, right? Whoever is working on this solution, or like who whatever research team or wherever you guys are working, huge kudos to all of you guys. Keep doing the great work. Thanks for explaining that in a better way. So can you little bit explain about how other teams in the country or outside the country are working towards it? Like you guys are one of the team who's working towards finding a solution, right? Are you guys collaborating with any other team, in joint venture in finding a possible solution or something? Can you explain a little bit on that?
My professor has many collaborations across the world, but for this work that we have collaborated with a professor named Vel Murugan from University of Madras. So he's a nice gentleman, and he's been in this industry for I don't know, for more than 3 decades, I would say. Um, and he has published around like 600 papers, so he is a big shot in this particular field. So we have collaborated with him, and he was the first one to propose this idea, like we should try with these drugs. So, and also many groups, like large number of groups are working on coronavirus at the moment. Literally every single group is focusing on that, because it's a sort of it's a hit or miss situation. Because in research, the best thing is, okay, of course you are going to save lives, that's true, but second also, one more thing is that you get sort of your own work is getting published, and you're getting the limelight. So it's a very happy phase for any researchers to get acknowledged for their work. So all of them are working, and in this, actually, in research, writing a paper and doing research is very difficult, as you all know. Everybody is doing research on a day-to-day basis, but then here we need to be sure about the facts. Because we are dealing with medicines, and so we need to be sure about the facts. writing a paper and publishing it is not really easy, especially in like standard journals. It takes a lot of effort, and also the work that you have written as a paper has to go to two different reviewers. So these people have to review it and then will tell their comments. Sometimes these comments will be very harsh. Sometimes they reject it. Sometimes they're pretty positive. So you have to take all of it in, and then you have to like enhance your work further. So in this way, in this particular situation, a lot of people are working on coronavirus mainly because they need to find a solution. One, two, they can publish more papers because we need a lot of information. A lot of information is lacking. So everybody is working on different aspects. Like somebody is working on machine learning to predict. Somebody is working on finding a medicine. Somebody is working on whether will be vanished in summer or not. So a lot of aspects. As I said earlier, it has paved a very good way for research.
That's a great explanation. Thanks for explaining in that way. So, if so, I just want to get your perspective on, you know, like how soon other research community responded to this pandemic. So, if I understand your answer properly, this is negative in many ways, of course, for the country and the world. But for you guys particularly, this could be a thriving situation where you can prove yourself. Am I interpreting right?
It's absolutely right, I would say, because this is like once in a lifetime situation for us, where we can, if we get to find something, then it's a huge deal. Otherwise, it's also sort of like learning experience for us, so we can always work on it.
In that way, I have to congratulate you again for getting your paper published. Really good job. Um,
Thank you.
your previous research is on HIV, right? Can you explain a little bit about that?
Yeah, my previous research was on collaboration with a professor from South Africa. So we were working on. I mean, I am still working on that. Just that I've paused it for quite a bit because of coronavirus. But so we have there are 9 FDA approved drugs for HIV, but these drugs have been developed untested in areas where certain type of HIV is prevalent. But in India and South Africa and other Brazil, China, the kind of HIV that we have, it will get too technical if I say certain terms. That's why I'm just saying the type. So there are different types. So the type of HIV in India and China or Brazil and South Africa is different. So we are working on finding medicines to target that particular type, because already available drugs are not efficient for this particular type. So we are working on developing drugs for that, and we are using various methods like machine learning at the moment, which I'm very interested in, and also other computational work.
HIV is a different animal altogether. I understand that, right? But different topic altogether, right? So, but what are the common things between HIV and corona? Are there any common thing, or in terms of technical, stuff that you're aware of?
They are both virus.
Well, yeah. So,
Not too technical if I talk about the similarities and differences, but uh, they are quite I mean, they're not similar, but if you see the drugs which have been used for HIV are being used for coronavirus as well, for this COVID-19. It's mainly because previous viruses like SARS and MERS, and this particular SARS coronavirus too, these also fall into the same category of SARS and MERS. So previously they have reported these HIV drugs inhibit SARS and MERS coronavirus. So that's why for this particular COVID-19, people have been working on or using HIV drugs for this particular COVID-19 as well. But otherwise, people are also using hydrochloroquine, which is the anti-malarial drug, and you must have all heard about it because it's all in the news right now.
yes, America has been asking India about that, if I'm not wrong, right?
Yes, right.
Okay. So the reason I'm asking that question is, I know there is. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but from my research and from my, typical Google search for half hour, none of the drugs have been found or proven to be successful for HIV, right? So far, like there are many speculations, but I still don't get the clear answer. Can you explain me or correct me or correct my assumptions?
There are always going to be speculations for sure because for HIV there are 9 FDA approved drugs, which means there are drugs. But the problem with HIV is that these viruses, okay, so basically let's say the viruses have certain sequence, like I'm just giving it in the layman terms, A B C D E, but when it moves to different person, from person to person, when it gets transmitted from place to place, it gets transmitted, the sequence of the virus gets changed. Like let's say from A B C D E, it changes to A D B C E or something like that. So the drugs which have been developed are for targeting that particular sequence ABCDE, not for ADCBE. So in that case, what will you do? That those drugs might not effectively work for that virus. So the rate of this is what we call mutation, and the mutant virus is called variant, we would say. So when there are different mutations, the drugs which we already have might not work for that particular virus in that particular area. So in research, in our terms, we say it's called mutation rate. When the mutation rate in HIV is quite high, and we also suspect that in coronavirus the mutation rate is equally high, because in China the numbers are pretty less, but there could be other reason. Either they are not reporting the right numbers, or that could be the actual numbers. The virus which have been transmitted to Italy and Spain or other European countries or US countries for that matter, the virus could have been mutated. So mutation can be either in a good way or bad way. Sometimes when the sequence changes, it loses its ability to infect others, but sometimes when it changes, it worsens. So in this case is the latter. It could have been mutated. It could have That's the main reason why we are seeing a huge number of deaths and cases in Western countries than in the other in the previous country, as in like where it originated in China.
I mean, it is really a tough situation. I hope someone can find or FDA can approve any of the drugs that could be treated very soon and stop spreading the virus and curing patients. Um, uh,
I hope so too.
on all the good things you're working on, there is always other side for the story, or any other researchers trying to exploit this situation and taking advantage of it, like in a negative way, or general public should be staying away from that you think of.
To be very honest, all of us are taking advantage of the situation. I'm so sorry, but yes, as researchers, this is a situation where we can use our knowledge to develop or to come up with a solution. But I don't think anybody would be like doing it in a negative way. Their interpretation would be different. That's what I would suggest, or I would say. Some things, if the other team is reporting something and I may not agree with, because I find that quite funny, but it's not like they are doing it intentionally, but we could say that everybody has a different perspective to it. I- and if you say people should be staying away from certain things, there's no such thing. Every research paper is online and people can read. There's always going to be controversy. There's always going to be some speculations. If I am saying something, the other person will say no, it is not going to work. So this is going to always work unless and until we actually have the right solution to it. Um, but right now, with this situation, there are huge number of papers, huge number of coronavirus related papers. So people are going to speculate a lot of things. So it's better to slightly stay away from such papers if you're not very comfortable, and yeah, just read what's on the news. That would be better.
Yeah, there are different stories in different news channels nowadays. I don't know what to trust. Anyway, I just want to talk a little bit about the infrastructure in India, about supporting this research, and how do you guys think it's conducive enough to like do all the researches you guys need? Because I know before joining IIT Madras, you've been in Singapore, you had your brief stint in Japan too, right? And did some research with the professors in the National University of Singapore, right? But what do you think is the biggest difference? Like what do you think? What is the good thing you think we have in our country, and what are the things that you think are lacking from your perspective? Obviously, it's subjective, but I just wanted to get your perspective.
Yeah, as you said, it's very subjective. And just a small correction, I was working in Nanyang Technological University and not NUS in Singapore. There are two different things, two different universities, but both of them are top universities, so that's fine. I'm happy about it though. But yeah, so from my perspective, India has a long way to go. Uh, but I am not complaining at all. I find it to be very, you know, in a good place. It is improving a lot, but the reason why people want to go out is because they have much more advanced equipment, and they have a lot of other funding. Good funding is there, and as researchers it gets monotonous at one point. So funding is a major problem in India. Sometimes people don't get their salary for almost a year, and then they get all together after 1 year. So but during the period of 1 year they are sort of left alone. So that sort of funding problems are there, and sometimes, and because of that funding problem, and not just for the students, even for the professors. So every project has some sort of funding allocated to it, and sometimes the funding gets late. I'm not saying that you're not going to get the funding. You are going to get the funding, but when are you going to get the funding is the point. So, and for me it's not a problem, because computational research is quite is okay, because you can still do it with your with the available resource, and not just with the laptop, with the available resource in the lab. But in the wet lab experiments it's quite difficult, because you need to get some compounds or enzymes or something like that. You need to buy it with the money, and if the project money is getting late, then your research is also getting late, and it takes a lot of time to complete the work. So that's the major disadvantage, I would say. But otherwise people are very Indian minds are very how to say, like, they are uh, advanced. They are thinking quite advanced, and with the good resources I think it can move extremely forward.
That's a very positive statement, Nisha. Thanks for sharing. And I think from I mean, I've seen in news, actually. I've seen my friends talking about lack of interest in taking this research or any other idea to next level because of political reasons or not funding. From a brief level, like, do you think government is interested in taking this research and getting more funding if someone thinks the idea is okay? Or how many layers of approval do you guys have to cross before getting funding for any of your ideas?
It's basically like interviews only, like job interviews. But if you see for coronavirus, just when it started, probably like 1.5 months or 2 months since it started in India, and we've already got like 5 6 proposals. Like the government has proposed, to find solution to all the researches. So if your proposal is good, and if your proposal is like validated to to take to the next step, then you will get good funding. But with respect to when you will get that, I'm not really sure, because that will be taken care by my professor. I will just get my salary on time. That's all.
Yes. So, I mean, that brings me to next question, actually. Like, I know research is not a typical choice for many students who come out of, or graduate from university, because from my understanding and from my observation, everyone wants to become either, IT professional, or like a data scientist, or like a YouTuber nowadays, or, any other fun things.
Or a podcaster.
Um, could be, right? So it's not still popular, but yeah. Um, well, yeah. So I mean, the point is, research is not a very commonly chosen field, but because it's not, people think it's not fun. But I've seen you're having a lot of fun doing this, right? Many times, and you don't feel like stressed out. But there are quite a few people actually or not aware of things that needs to be done to get into this research. Can you explain a little bit about if for an aspiring researcher, what should they do, or what should they read, or like basic things or necessities to just get into this field, or being aware of things going on in this research field?
Actually, that's a lot of questions, but I'll try to answer. So, okay. For I think everybody researches at the moment, like not at the moment, for everything. If they want to buy a smartphone, they do their own research, right? So it's not like research is not something which needs to be done separately. But what they are researching on is what giving you the degree. Otherwise everybody is researching. Okay, in this particular work, in this particular field research, why people don't take it? That's a very interesting question. I think because it takes a lot of time to complete PhD. It's not an easy task to complete within, like, 1 or 2 years, like masters, or undergraduate you have to do for 4 years. But otherwise masters is an optional, you can do. Otherwise you don't need to do. You can just go for job, and the pay, the amount of money that you're getting in the research is quite less compared to, you get in the IT sector or other YouTuber, as you said. um, that's one of the things. And especially for men, it's just I what I've noticed in my university, men and women, in research, they it takes a lot of time, so they're also getting old, so a lot of family pressure for them to get married and stuff like that. So that's also major reason why they sometimes quit and sometimes don't prefer to do research. Otherwise it's a very good field to, as in, it's just very fun. As you said, I am having a lot of fun, but I've not always had this lot of fun, while doing research. In Singapore, I did not honestly have fun, because research majorly depends on, of course, your interest, one thing. Second thing, your professor. I think I'm very blessed in that way to have a very, very kind-hearted professor at the same time, who was also extremely intelligent. So this doesn't happen with everybody. Sometimes, professors can be really mean and can be harsh, which doesn't help the researchers to grow. And because of that, it, it gets very difficult. Sometimes people quit for that. So to do research in this particular field, to get a degree, then in that case, first find out the interest, the area of interest, and then the professor. I cannot stress on this. It plays a huge role in this particular field. Once your professor is set, even your interest can, change. Of course, you can read about it. Your interest might change or might not, but once your professor is set, I think you're good to go. So it matters a lot.
I've never heard anyone explaining research like that before. It's very interesting to know. Now that you've published your paper, right? So, are you going to resume your current projects which we're working on before the outbreak, or what's the plan?
Of course, I have to continue all the projects. I have to finish all of them. Not like finish. There's no such thing called end point to it. As long as you can continue, you can always continue. But I am planning to continue on this coronavirus work, and majorly I'm focusing on natural compounds, because I feel, as Indians, one of the good things that I have seen in India is that the death rate is quite less. And also the number of cases. The cases are good, but the cases are increasing day by day, but death rate is quite less, which is actually a positive thing. I suspect that it has to do with our, our immunity, our immune power already that we have. So, and also the compounds, the things that we eat, like turmeric and all the, other masala that uh, all the masala that we eat. So everything has certain compounds to it, and because of that, I think we already have that immunity. And also majorly, we have had chicken pox and dengue and influenza. Swine flu. So all of this. So we have tackled all of it, and we have that in our body to tackle this as well. So that's, I think, one of the major reasons why we are not seeing so many deaths. But I may be wrong. This is just my assumption. So right now this is my assumption, but after 1 week or after 2 weeks, I don't know how the situation is going to be. So we work on these assumptions. So this is my assumption. So I believe that the compounds, the food that we take has a lot of importance. So I'm working on natural compounds. For example, if you see turmeric has this compound called curcumin. So this is a natural compound. So like that, there are many natural compounds available. I'm focusing on the compounds which are available in India, which people usually take, and to see whether this has anything to do with our, with to prevent corona, or to control the disease on those lines. And with respect to other work that I've been doing, once this is over, I will eventually continue, or I will, um, I'll continue this alongside. I don't know it.
Well, I think we'll figure that out in like couple weeks to see how good of immunity we have, and what's the stats going on, because we are in the last week of lockdown. Hopefully everyone is very hopeful that this lockdown is getting done by April 15. Let's hope for the positive news from the government. Until then, I wish you good luck for all your research, and big congratulations again for your paper, and wish you all the best.
Thank you so much, and I think I'll see you for dinner. Bye.
Bye. That was very simple yet technical and very interesting conversation with a researcher on coronavirus. I have given the link to the paper published by Nisha and few resources for on this topic in the description. People who are interested, they can take a look at it, and I will see you guys next time with few more interesting topics. Until then, stay inside and stay safe. We'll fight this together.